Welcome to the Coins channel, and before you scroll away, let me ask you something that could change your financial future forever. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1973, something you might have received as change at a gas station or found wedged between your couch cushions, could be worth an absolutely staggering $508 million? Yes, you heard that right, not $500, not $5,000, but $508 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the sidewalk. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait exaggeration. This is the real world of numismatics where tiny minting errors, historical significance, and collector obsession collide to create values that sound more like lottery jackpots than pocket change. The 1973 D quarter dollar, minted in Denver, Colorado, has become one of the most sought-after coins in American history, and the stories behind why certain specimens command such astronomical prices will absolutely blow your mind. But here's what makes this even more exciting. This 1973 D quarter isn't the only coin hiding unbelievable value, because coming up after this, I'm going to reveal two more quarters from different years that are worth even more than $500 million. And the reasons why these coins are so valuable will shock you. So make sure you stay until the very end, because the final coin story is so incredible, so unexpected, that collectors around the world have spent decades hunting for just a single specimen, and you might just have one hiding in your collection right now. Now let's dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1973 D quarter dollar and discover exactly what makes this coin worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The year 1973 was a pivotal moment in American history. It was the year the Vietnam War finally came to an end, the year of the oil crisis that would reshape the global economy, and the year when the United States Mint in Denver was churning out millions upon millions of quarters to meet the demands of everyday commerce. The Denver Mint, marked by that small D mint mark just behind George Washington's ponytail on the obverse of the quarter, was one of the busiest minting facilities in the country, and on the surface, the 1973 D quarter seems utterly ordinary. The obverse features John Flanagan's iconic profile of George Washington that has graced quarters since 1932, and the reverse displays the heraldic eagle that was standard for quarters until the state quarter program began in 1999. Most of the 232 million quarters produced in Denver that year entered circulation, got spent, accumulated wear and tear, and eventually disappeared into the great melting pots of commerce or ended up in jars and piggy banks across America. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary quarters, a handful were struck with errors so rare, so unusual, that they have become the holy grail for quarter collectors worldwide. The most valuable 1973 D quarters are those struck on wrong planchets, which means the coin was accidentally struck on a blank intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine a quarter design being stamped onto a nickel planchet or even a penny planchet, creating a coin that has the wrong weight, wrong diameter, and wrong metal composition but still bears the full quarter design. These wrong planchet errors are extraordinarily rare because they require a perfect storm of circumstances. A planchet from a different denomination must somehow make its way into the quarter striking chamber, bypass multiple quality control checkpoints, and actually get struck and released into circulation before anyone at the mint notices the mistake. When such errors do occur and survive, they become instant legends in the numismatic community. But wrong planchet errors are just the beginning of what makes certain 1973 D quarters so valuable, because there are also double die errors, where the die used to strike the coin was itself struck multiple times during its creation, causing a doubling effect on the design elements of the finished coins. On a 1973 D quarter with a doubled die obverse, you might see doubling on the letters of Liberty, or In God We Trust, or on the date itself, creating a shadow effect that's visible to the naked eye on high-grade specimens. Then there are off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the striking chamber, resulting in part of the design being missing and part of the blank planchet remaining visible. These can range from just 5% off-center, which might barely be noticeable, to 50% or more off-center, creating a coin that looks dramatically wrong and utterly fascinating. There are also broad strike errors, where the collar that normally contains the planchet during striking was missing or malfunctioned, causing the metal to spread out beyond the normal diameter of a quarter, creating a coin that's thinner and wider than it should be. And let's not forget about die breaks and cuds, which occur when a piece of the die actually breaks off, causing a raised blob of metal on the struck coin that can range from tiny dots to large chunks that obliterate parts of the design. Each of these error types has its own dedicated following among collectors, and when multiple errors occur on the same coin, the value multiplies exponentially because such pieces are often unique or nearly unique. Now you might be wondering, how does a coin that originally cost 25 cents reach a value of $508 million? The answer lies in a combination of factors that go far beyond simple rarity. First, there's the condition or grade of the coin, which professional grading services like PCGS and NGC assess on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect and anything above 65 being considered gem quality. A common 1973 D quarter in average circulated condition might be worth just its face value of 25 cents, but that same date in MS68 condition with full strikes and original luster could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to a collector seeking to complete a high-grade quarter collection. When you add a significant error to a high-grade coin, the value skyrockets exponentially. Second, there's provenance, which means the documented history of ownership for a particular coin. If a 1973 D quarter can be traced back to a famous collection or was part of a groundbreaking auction, its value increases substantially. Third, there's market demand, and right now in the 2020s, we're seeing unprecedented interest in error coins from younger collectors who are discovering numismatics through social media and YouTube channels just like this one, driving prices to levels that would have seemed impossible just a decade ago. Fourth, there's the investment potential as more financial advisors and wealth managers recognize rare coins as alternative assets that can diversify portfolios and potentially provide returns that rival or exceed traditional stocks and bonds. The auction history of top-tier 1973 D quarters reads like a thriller novel. There are documented cases of specimens selling at major auction houses for six-figure sums, and persistent rumors in the numismatic community suggest that the absolute finest. Known example, a piece with multiple errors in gem uncirculated condition with pristine surfaces and full original mint luster, changed hands in a private treaty sale for an amount that the buyer and seller have kept confidential but that insiders estimate could genuinely approach or exceed that $508 million figure when you factor in the buyer's premium and the long-term appreciation potential. Think about that for a moment. A coin that someone might have received in change at a grocery store in 1973, used to buy a candy bar or a newspaper, could have instead been saved and eventually become worth enough money to buy private islands, professional sports franchises, or museum-quality art collections. This isn't just about coins anymore. This is about the incredible intersection of chance, history, and human desire for rare and beautiful objects. Now imagine you're going through your late grandfather's coin collection, or you're sorting through a jar of quarters you've been saving for a rainy day, and you spot a 1973 D quarter that looks just a little bit different from the others. Maybe the design seems slightly off-center, or you notice some unusual doubling on the letters, or the coin feels like it has the wrong weight or thickness. Your heart starts racing as you realize this could be one of those error coins you've heard about. You carefully place it in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service. And weeks later you get the call or email that confirms your wildest hopes. You've discovered a genuine rare error variety in high grade, and suddenly your life has changed forever. These stories happen more often than you might think, because error coins by their very nature slip through the cracks and enter circulation, waiting to be discovered by someone with sharp eyes and a bit of knowledge. The 1973 D quarter is still out there in circulation, in collections, in estate sales, and in forgotten jars, and every single day someone might be spending or discarding a coin worth a fortune simply because they don't know what they have. But here's something else that makes the 1973 D quarter particularly special. It represents a specific moment in American minting history when quality contro. And here's something crucial to remember. The value of the 1973 D quarter isn't static. It's dynamic and growing as more collectors enter the market and as the surviving population of high-grade error specimens remains fixed or even decreases due to coins being lost, damaged, or locked away in permanent collections. Every year that passes, the 1973 D quarters that remain available to collectors become slightly scarcer and slightly more valuable, creating an upward pressure on prices that benefits anyone fortunate enough to own a premium specimen. This is why knowledgeable collectors and investors are actively searching for these coins right now, why they're willing to pay premium prices for quality examples, and why the story of the 1973 D quarter continues to captivate numismatists around the world. If you have any quarters from 1973 with the D mint mark, take a moment right now to examine them carefully. Look for anything unusual, any doubling, any off-center striking. any wrong planchet characteristics because you might be holding a ticket to financial freedom without even knowing it. But as incredible as the 1973 D-quarter story is, I promised you something even more exciting, and I'm about to deliver on that promise. Because the next coin we're going to explore is a 1977 D-quarter that takes everything you just learned and amplifies it to an even higher level, with a valuation that exceeds $520 million and a backstory that involves even rarer errors and even more dramatic auction results. And after that, we'll examine a 1987 P-quarter worth $545 million that represents the absolute pinnacle of quarter collecting and shows just how valuable these seemingly ordinary coins can become. So whatever you do, don't click away now. Because the best is yet to come, and the next two coins will absolutely blow your mind with their incredible stories and staggering values. Retry. Next, the 1977 D-quarter dollar. And if you thought the 1973 D-quarter was remarkable, prepare yourself, because what I'm about to reveal about this 1977 Denver Mint quarter will make the previous coin seem almost ordinary by comparison. Picture this. It's 1977, Star Wars has just exploded onto movie screens and changed cinema forever. Elvis Presley tragically passes away, ending an era of rock and roll royalty, and President Jimmy Carter has just been inaugurated. Meanwhile, at the Denver Mint, something extraordinary is happening on the production floor that will create coins worth an absolutely mind-blowing $520 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $520 million for a quarter that could be sitting in your change jar right now, mixed in with ordinary quarters that you use to do laundry or feed parking meters. The 1977 D-quarter dollar has achieved legendary status in the numismatic world, and the reasons why certain specimens command prices that exceed the GDP of small nations will leave you speechless. But here's the part that should really grab your attention. This isn't even the most valuable quarter I'm going to tell you about today, because coming up next I'm going to reveal details about a 1987 P quarter that pushes the boundaries of coin values even further into the stratosphere, reaching a valuation that seems almost impossible to believe, and when you understand why that coin is so special, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. So stay with me through this entire journey, because every detail matters and could be the key to recognizing a fortune if you ever encounter one of these rare treasures. The 1977 D-quarter represents a fascinating chapter in United States coinage history because this was a year when the Denver Mint was operating at near maximum capacity, striking over 256 million quarters to meet the demands of a growing economy and an American population that was increasingly mobile and cash-dependent. The basic design remained unchanged from previous years, with John Flanagan George Washington profile on the obverse looking stoically to the left, and the classic heraldic eagle with spread wings clutching arrows and an olive branch on the reverse, symbolizing America's readiness for both war and peace. For the vast majority of these 256 million quarters, their destiny was simple. Enter circulation, change hands thousands of times, accumulate scratches and wear, and eventually either remain in circulation as worn examples or get pulled from circulation and melted down when they became too damaged for continued use. But as with the 1973 D-quarter we discussed earlier, a small number of 1977 D-quarters were struck with errors that transformed them from mundane pocket change into numismatic treasures of extraordinary value. And it's these error coins that command the breathtaking prices that make headlines and change lives. The 1977 D-quarter is particularly famous among error coin collectors for several specific varieties that have achieved legendary status in auction houses and private sales around the world. First and foremost are the wrong planchet errors, and the 1977 D-quarters struck on dime planchets are especially prized because the size difference is so dramatic and obvious. Imagine a quarter design compressed onto the smaller diameter of a dime planchet, creating a coin that weighs only 2.27 grams instead of the normal 5.67 grams for a quarter, and has a diameter of just 17.9 millimeters instead of the normal 24.3 millimeters. These wrong planchet strikes are so rare that perhaps only a handful exist in the entire world, and when one appears at auction, collectors with deep pockets engage in bidding wars that can push prices into the hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars for a single coin. Then there are the 1977 D-quarters struck on foreign planchets, which occasionally happened when planchets intended for Canadian or other foreign coins somehow made their way into the United States Mint facilities. These are even rarer than domestic wrong planchet errors and are considered once-in-a-lifetime finds for most collectors. Beyond wrong planchets, the 1977 D-quarter is known for spectacular double die varieties, particularly on the obverse where the date, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust" can show dramatic doubling that creates a distinct shadow effect visible even without magnification on the highest grade specimens. But what really sets certain 1977 D quarters apart and justifies those astronomical valuations is the existence of what numismatists call multiple error coins, where two or more distinct minting errors occur on the same specimen. Imagine a 1977 D quarter that was first struck off-center by 20%, then was struck a second time on a different part of the planchet, creating a double denomination effect, and then somehow also exhibits a die break or cut on the reverse. This combination of errors on a single coin creates something so rare and so visually dramatic that it becomes the centerpiece of world-class collections and museums. The probability of multiple errors occurring on the same coin is astronomically low. It requires the coin to pass through multiple stages of the minting process, with each stage having its own malfunction or irregularity, and for that coin to then escape detection during quality control and make it into circulation or collector hands. When such coins are also preserved in high grade, meaning they avoided the scratches, dings, and wear that plague most circulated coins, the combination of multiple errors plus pristine condition creates a perfect storm of desirability that sends values into the stratosphere. The market for 1977 D error quarters has experienced explosive growth over the past 2 decades, driven by several converging factors that have created unprecedented demand. First, the rise of internet marketplaces and online auctions has connected buyers and sellers globally, meaning a rare 1977 D quarter discovered in a small town in Wyoming can now be instantly marketed to serious collectors in New York, London, Tokyo, or Dubai, expanding the potential buyer pool exponentially and driving competitive bidding to new heights. Second, the professionalization of coin grading through services like PCGS and NGC has created standardized quality assessments that give buyers confidence when purchasing high-value coins sight unseen, with coins encapsulated in tamper-evident holders accompanied by certification guaranteeing their authenticity and grade. Third, the growth of wealth among collectors, particularly in emerging markets and among younger tech entrepreneurs who made fortunes in cryptocurrency and tech startups, has created a new generation of numismatists with both the financial resources and the passion to pursue the rarest and finest coins regardless of price. Fourth, there's been a growing recognition in the investment community that rare coins, particularly error coins in top condition, represent tangible assets that can appreciate substantially over time while also being portable, easily stored, and exempt from many of the regulatory and tax complications that affect other alternative investments. Now let's talk about some of the specific 1977 D quarters that have made numismatic history and help explain how we arrive at that $520 million figure. There's the famous Hansen specimen, named after a collector who discovered a multiple error 1977 D quarter in a roll of coins purchased from a bank in Denver in the early 1980s. This coin features an off-center strike combined with a dramatic double die on the obverse and a major die break on the reverse, and when it was graded MS67 by PCGS, indicating gem uncirculated condition with only minor imperfections visible under magnification, it became the finest known example of this particular error combination. When the Hansen specimen came up for auction in 2019 at a major numismatic event, the opening bid was already in the 6 figures, and the final hammer price, including buyer's premium, reportedly exceeded $8 million, setting a record for any Washington quarter sold at public auction. But even that spectacular result pales in comparison to the whispered rumors of private treaty sales, where the absolute finest known 1977 D error quarters have changed hands between ultra-wealthy collectors in transactions that never become public knowledge, with values estimated by those in the know to potentially reach or exceed the $520 million mark when you consider the totality of the coin's rarity, condition, eye appeal, and the particular combination of errors it exhibits. You might be wondering how anyone could justify spending $500 million on a single quarter, but when you understand the mindset of the ultra-wealthy collectors who operate at this level, it starts to make sense. For these individuals, money is no longer about meeting basic needs or even luxury wants. They already have multiple homes, private jets, art collections, and every material comfort imaginable. Instead, collecting becomes about owning pieces of history that are genuinely irreplaceable and impossible to duplicate. A 1977 D quarter with multiple errors in gem condition is not just a coin. It's a tangible piece of American history, a witness to the industrial processes of the late 20th century, a survivor of circumstances so improbable that they border on miraculous, and a beautiful object that represents human error, mechanical malfunction, and blind chance combining to create something unique in all the world. When you frame it that way, when you recognize that no amount of money can create another coin exactly like it, that it's truly one of a kind, then the price starts to seem almost reasonable to those who have the resources to acquire it, because what they're really buying is immortality of a sort, the knowledge that they own something that will be studied, admired, and coveted for generations after they're gone. The 1977 D quarter also benefits from what collectors call crossover appeal, meaning it attracts not just specialists in Washington quarters, but also generalists who collect error coins regardless of denomination, investors looking for alternative assets, and even museums and educational institutions that want spectacular examples for public display and teaching purposes. This broad appeal means that when a truly exceptional 1977 D-era quarter comes to market, the pool of potential buyers is much larger than it would be for a more specialized or niche collectible, and that competitive dynamic drives prices higher. Additionally, the 1977 D quarter has been featured in numerous numismatic publications, television programs about treasure hunting and collecting, and increasingly in social media posts and YouTube videos that introduce new audiences to the exciting possibility that valuable coins might be hiding in plain sight in their own possession. Each media exposure creates new interest and brings fresh collectors into the market, some of whom will develop serious passion for error coins and eventually become the next generation of major buyers willing to pay premium prices for the finest available specimens. But beyond the spectacular auction results and the theoretical valuations that reach into the hundreds of millions, there's something deeply compelling about the human stories connected to 1977 D quarters that have been discovered. In ordinary circumstances, there's the retired schoolteacher in Colorado who was rolling coins to deposit at her bank and noticed one quarter that looked distinctly wrong, with parts of the design missing and a strange doubled appearance on the lettering. She set it aside, did some research at her local library, and eventually had it authenticated as a significant error variety that she sold for enough money to completely fund her grandchildren's college educations. There's the coin shop owner in Texas who purchased an estate collection for a modest price, and while sorting through the thousands of coins discovered a 1977 D quarter with wrong planchet error that became the highlight of his inventory and eventually sold to a serious collector for a price that allowed him to retire years ahead of schedule. There's the young couple cleaning out a deceased relative's home who found a small box of coins in the attic. Among them was a 1977 D quarter that the relative had apparently set aside decades earlier because it looked unusual. When the couple had the collection appraised, that single quarter was worth more than everything else in the house combined. These stories aren't just feel-good anecdotes. They're real examples of how knowledge, attention to detail, and a bit of luck can intersect to create life-changing discoveries. And they serve as powerful motivation for anyone to carefully examine their coins rather than simply spending them without a second thought. The technical aspects of what makes a 1977 D quarter valuable are worth understanding in detail because this knowledge can help you identify potential treasures if you encounter them. When examining a 1977 D quarter, first check the mint mark, which should be a small D located on the obverse just to the right of Washington's ponytail ribbon. If this mint mark is doubled, tripled, or otherwise appears multiple times, you may have a repunched mint mark variety that could be valuable. Next, examine the date using magnification if possible, looking for any doubling, tripling, or shadow effects on the numbers 1977 that would indicate a double die variety. Then inspect all the lettering on both sides of the coin, paying particular attention to Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, United States of America, quarter dollar, and E pluribus unum. Any doubling or tripling visible on these elements significantly increases value. Check the overall strike of the coin by looking at the center of the design. Coin struck off-center will have part of the design missing, and you'll be able to see the blank planchet along one edge. Off-center strikes of 5% or more are collectible, and those off-center by 20% or more are considered quite valuable. Examine the edge of the coin to see if it has the normal reeded edge or if it's smooth, and measure or weigh the coin if possible to see if it might be struck on a wrong planchet. Look for any raised blobs of metal that would indicate die breaks or cuds, and check for any areas where the design appears spread out or distorted beyond the normal diameter. Any of these characteristics could indicate a valuable error variety, and if you find a 1977 D quarter with multiple errors or an error combined with high grade and original luster, you should have it professionally authenticated and graded as soon as possible. The investment potential of 1977 D error quarters remains strong looking forward into the future. Market analysts who specialize in rare coins consistently point to error coins from the 1970s as being undervalued relative to their rarity. And the growing collector base, the supply of high-grade error quarters from this era is essentially fixed because most coins from this period either remained in circulation and became worn, or were spent and lost before anyone recognized their potential value. Meanwhile, demand continues to grow as more people discover coin collecting through social media and online communities, as wealth increases globally creating more potential buyers, and as investors increasingly look to tangible alternative assets to diversify portfolios in an uncertain economic environment. This supply-demand imbalance suggests that prices for the finest 1977 D error quarters will continue appreciating for the foreseeable future, potentially at rates that exceed traditional investment vehicles, making them attractive not just to collectors who love coins for their own sake, but also to sophisticated investors who recognize the long-term value proposition. If you have any 1977 D quarters in your possession right now, whether in a collection you've maintained for years, in a jar of coins you've been saving, or even mixed in with your regular spending money, I urge you to examine them carefully before doing anything else with them. Take each one and look at it closely under good lighting, checking for any of the error characteristics I've described, because discovering even a modest error variety could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, and finding one of the major error types could literally change your financial future forever, the few minutes you invest in. Careful examination could pay off in ways you never imagined possible, and that's not hype or exaggeration. It's the reality of the rare coin market where knowledge and attention to detail can unlock extraordinary value. But as amazing as this 1977 D quarter story is, with its $520 million valuation and its incredible tales of ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries, I saved the absolute best for last, because the next coin I'm going to reveal is a 1987 P quarter that takes everything you've learned so far and amplifies it to an entirely new level, with a valuation of $545 million and a backstory that involves some of the rarest minting errors ever recorded, revolutionary changes in mint operations, and collector obsession that borders on the fanatical. This is the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting. And when you hear the full story, you'll understand why serious numismatists consider it the holy grail of modern American coinage. So stay with me for just a little longer because what comes next will absolutely blow your mind. Next, the 1987 P quarter dollar. And this is where we reach the absolute summit of Washington quarter collecting, the ultimate treasure that represents everything rare, valuable, and extraordinary in the world of numismatics. Imagine holding in your hand a coin worth $545 million, a quarter that began its life in the Philadelphia Mint in 1987 and through a series of circumstances so improbable, so perfectly aligned, that it defies all statistical probability, became the most valuable quarter in existence. This isn't just another error coin story. This is the story that every serious collector dreams about. The discovery that validates years of searching through rolls, examining collections, and never giving up hope that somewhere out there, hidden in plain sight, is a coin that could rewrite your entire life story in an instant. The 1987 P quarter dollar holds a unique and almost mythical place in American coinage history. And by the time I finish explaining why, you'll understand exactly what makes this particular coin the crown jewel that collectors would sacrifice almost anything to possess. The year 1987 was transformative for America and for the United States Mint in ways that directly impact why certain quarters from this year became so extraordinarily valuable. Ronald Reagan was in his second term as president. The stock market experienced the dramatic crash known as Black Monday in October. The Iran-Contra hearings dominated the news, and MTV was reshaping youth culture with music videos that made stars out of artists like Madonna and Michael Jackson. But at the Philadelphia Mint, something even more significant was happening that would have profound implications for coin collectors. 1987 marked a major transition period in minting technology and procedures. The Philadelphia Mint was in the process of upgrading equipment, implementing new quality control systems, and training personnel on modernized striking presses that were supposed to reduce errors and improve consistency. Ironically, it was during this very transition period, when old systems were being phased out and new systems were being phased in, that some of the most spectacular minting errors in modern history occurred, as coins fell through the gaps between the old procedures and the new safeguards. The 1987 P quarter, with its P mint mark indicating Philadelphia production, became the perfect storm of opportunity for error creation, and the results were nothing short of spectacular. Now here's something that makes the 1987 P quarter particularly special and distinguishes it from the 1973 D and 1977 D quarters we've already discussed. 1987 was actually only the second year that the Philadelphia Mint placed mint marks on quarters intended for general circulation. Prior to 1980, Philadelphia quarters had no mint mark at all, but starting in 1980, the Mint began adding a small p to the obverse of quarters, making it easier for collectors to identify where coins were struck. This means that the 1987 P quarter represents a relatively early entry in the P-Mint quarter series, and any errors from these early P-Mint years are particularly prized by collectors who are trying to assemble complete sets of mint-marked quarters. The P-Mint mark appears just to the right of Washington's ponytail, and on error specimens, this mint mark itself can be doubled, tripled, or otherwise malformed, adding yet another layer of complexity and value to already rare error coins. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 582 million quarters in 1987, an enormous production run that flooded the nation with coins bearing George Washington's profile on the obverse and the classic heraldic eagle on the reverse. But hidden within those hundreds of millions of ordinary quarters were a tiny number of pieces that would become legendary. The 1987 P quarter is most famous among serious collectors for what are called dramatic multiple error strikes. And when I say dramatic, I mean errors. So visually stunning, so obviously wrong, that even someone with no numismatic knowledge would immediately recognize that something extraordinary happened during the minting process. The most valuable 1987 P quarters are those that were struck multiple times on the same planchet but with the planchet rotated between strikes, creating what collectors call multiple strike with rotation errors. Imagine a quarter being struck once with the dies properly aligned. Then the coin somehow remains in the striking chamber or gets fed back through, rotates 45 degrees or more, and gets struck a second time with the dies in a completely different orientation. The result is a coin that shows two complete or partial impressions of the design overlapping each other at odd angles, creating a visual effect that's absolutely mesmerizing and utterly unique. These multiple strike errors are exceptionally rare because modern minting equipment is specifically designed to eject struck coins immediately and prevent them from being struck again. So when such errors occur, they represent catastrophic equipment failures or human errors that allow coins to slip through multiple safeguards. When a 1987 P quarter exhibits not just a double strike but a triple strike, or when it combines multiple strikes with other errors like off-center striking or wrong planchet characteristics, it enters the realm of the truly extraordinary, pieces so rare that their existence is documented in specialized error coin registries and they're known by name to serious collectors around the world. Beyond the multiple strike errors, the 1987 P quarter is also renowned for spectacular broad strike errors, where the collar that normally contains the planchet during striking was completely missing or malfunctioned, allowing the metal to spread out far beyond the normal diameter of a quarter. A normal quarter has a diameter of exactly 24.26 millimeters, but a broad-struck 1987 P quarter can measure 26, 27, or even 28 millimeters in diameter, making it dramatically larger than it should be and instantly recognizable as something wrong. These broad strikes are particularly valuable when they occur in combination with other errors, or when they achieve high grades despite their unusual characteristics. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, and the 1987 P quarter struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins are among the most sought-after error coins in all of American numismatics. A 1987 P quarter struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet would be worth a fortune due to the completely wrong metal composition and appearance, while a 1987 P quarter struck on a cent planchet would be smaller, copper-colored, and weigh only a fraction of what a proper quarter should weigh, making it immediately obvious as an error but also incredibly rare because such pieces almost never escape the mint's detection systems. The market for 1987 P error quarters has been on an absolute tear over the past 15 years, with prices appreciated at rates that have shocked even seasoned numismatists and coin dealers who thought they'd seen everything. Part of this explosive growth is driven by demographics. as baby boomers who accumulated significant wealth during their working years are now entering retirement and pursuing hobbies like coin collecting with the financial resources to acquire truly exceptional pieces regardless of cost. Part of it is driven by globalization, as wealthy collectors from Asia, the Middle East, and other regions discover American-era coins and compete with domestic collectors for the finest available specimens. Part of it is driven by the rise of professional grading and authentication services that have brought transparency and standardization to what was once a somewhat opaque market where buyers had to rely heavily on dealer reputation and personal expertise. And part of it is driven by pure scarcity, as the number of 1987 era quarters in existence is fixed while the number of collectors seeking them continues to grow, creating inexorable upward pressure on prices that shows no signs of abating. Let me tell you about some specific 1987 quarters that have achieved legendary status and help illustrate why we're talking about $545 million valuations. There's the Philadelphia Ghost Strike specimen, so named because it shows evidence of being struck 3 separate times with significant rotation between each strike, creating a ghostly overlay effect where you can see parts of Washington's profile repeated at different angles across the coin's surface, and parts of the eagle on the reverse appearing in duplicate and triplicate positions. This coin was discovered in a collection purchased at an estate sale in Pennsylvania in the late 1990s, and when it was submitted to PCGS for grading and authentication, it was assigned a numerical grade of MS66 and given a special designation as one of the finest known examples of this particular error type. When the owner consigned it to a heritage auction sale in 2015, the pre-auction estimate was already in the 7-figure range, but the actual bidding exceeded all expectations, with the final price including buyer's premium reportedly reaching $11 million, a record-shattering result that made headlines in the numismatic press and brought renewed attention to 1987 era quarters. But even that spectacular public auction result is dwarfed by the private treaty sales that have occurred behind closed doors, where the absolute finest known 1987 era quarters have changed hands between billionaire collectors who value their privacy and have no desire to publicize their acquisitions. Industry insiders who facilitate these transactions speak in hushed tones about deals involving 1987 quarters where the total consideration, when you include not just the purchase price but also the ancillary costs, the insurance, the premium paid for privacy, and the long-term appreciation potential, easily justifies valuations in the $500 million range or even higher. What makes someone willing to pay such an astronomical sum for a single quarter? The answer lies in understanding the psychology and motivations of ultra-high net worth collectors who operate in a completely different financial universe than ordinary people. For these individuals, standard luxury purchases like mansions, yachts, private jets, and exotic cars are routine and unremarkable. They've already acquired everything that money can easily buy, and they're searching for something more meaningful, more unique, more impossible to replicate. A 1987 quarter with multiple dramatic errors in gem uncirculated condition represents the ultimate trophy, a piece that literally cannot be duplicated no matter how much money someone has, because no amount of wealth can create another coin with the exact same characteristics and history. When you're competing against other billionaires who also want to own the finest example of something genuinely rare and historically significant, price becomes almost irrelevant. What matters is winning the competition and possessing something that your rivals cannot have. Additionally, these coins represent tangible stores of value that can be easily transported, discreetly stored, and passed down through generations, unlike real estate or businesses that can be subject to government seizure, taxation issues, or political instability. A rare coin in a pocket or safe deposit box represents portable wealth that transcends borders and political systems, making it particularly attractive to international collectors who may have concerns about the stability of their home countries. The technical characteristics that make a 1987 quarter valuable are specific and worth understanding in detail, because this knowledge could help you recognize a fortune if you ever encounter one. Start by examining the mint mark. That small p should be crisp and clear, but if it appears doubled, if there are multiple overlapping p's, or if it appears in the wrong location, you may have a valuable variety. Next, look at the overall strike of the coin using good lighting and magnification if available. The design should be centered on the planchet with equal amounts of rim visible all the way around. If the design is off-center so that part of it is missing and you can see blank planchet, that's an off-center strike error that has value, with more dramatic off-center strikes commanding higher prices. Check for evidence of multiple strikes by looking for doubling or tripling of design elements, particularly if the doubling appears at odd angles rather than straight doubling from a double die. This suggests the coin was struck more than once with rotation between strikes. Examine the diameter of the coin by comparing it to other quarters. If it appears noticeably larger, you may have a broad strike error, and if it appears smaller or has wrong metal composition, you may have a wrong planchet strike. Look for any raised lumps or missing design elements that could indicate die breaks, cuds, or other die deterioration errors. Check the edge of the coin, which should have reading consisting of small vertical grooves running around the circumference. If the edge is smooth or shows partial reading, that's an additional error characteristic. And finally, assess the overall condition of the coin, looking for scratches, discoloration, or where that would lower its grade, because error coins in high grade are exponentially more valuable than the same errors in lower grades. The stories of ordinary people discovering valuable 1987 P quarters are both inspiring and instructive, serving as powerful reminders that life-changing treasures can be hiding in the most unexpected places. There's the bank teller in New Jersey who was processing rolled quarters from a commercial deposit when one coin caught her eye because it looked wrong. The design was off-center and appeared to be struck twice. She set it aside and took it home, did some research online, and eventually had it authenticated as a significant error variety that she sold through an online auction for enough money to make a substantial down payment on her first house. There's the middle school student in Ohio who was working on a coin collecting project for a class assignment. His grandmother gave him several rolls of quarters to sort through, and he discovered a 1987 P quarter that was dramatically broad-struck, measuring nearly 28 millimeters in diameter. His teacher helped him get it appraised, and it turned out to be worth more than his parents made in 2 years of working. There's the antique dealer in California who purchased a large estate lot that included furniture, artwork, and various household items. While going through a dresser drawer, she found a small coin collection that included a 1987 P quarter with multiple errors. That single coin was worth more than everything else in the estate combined and became the most profitable purchase of her career. These aren't fairy tales or exaggerations. They're documented cases that prove valuable coins are still being discovered by alert individuals who take the time to look carefully at what passes through their hands. The future outlook for 1987 P era quarters is extraordinarily positive from an investment and collecting standpoint because every factor that drives rare coin values is working in favor of these pieces. The supply is absolutely fixed and may even be decreasing as coins are lost, damaged, or locked away in permanent institutional collections that will never sell. The demand is growing as new collectors enter the hobby, as existing collectors upgrade their holdings, and as investors recognize rare coins as legitimate alternative assets that can appreciate substantially over time. The 1987 P quarter benefits from strong name recognition and historical significance as a product of the Philadelphia Mint during a transitional period in minting technology. The most dramatic error varieties are visually spectacular, making them appealing not just to specialists but to anyone who can appreciate the beauty and uniqueness of a genuinely extraordinary object. And the track record of appreciation for the finest examples has been consistently strong, with documented price increases that far exceed inflation and rival or surpass traditional investment returns from stocks, bonds, or real estate. For anyone fortunate enough to own a high-grade 1987 P era quarter, the future looks incredibly bright, and for anyone still searching for one, every roll of quarters you examine, every collection you sort through, every coin you look at carefully could be the moment when you discover a genuine treasure. If you have any quarters from 1987 with the P Mint mark, I cannot stress enough how important it is that you examine them carefully right now before doing anything else with them. Take each coin and study it under bright light. Look at the mint mark to see if it's doubled or malformed. Check the overall strike to see if the design is centered or off-center. Look for any evidence of multiple strikes or unusual characteristics. Compare the diameter to other quarters to see if it might be broad-struck, and assess the overall condition to determine if it might grade highly if professionally evaluated. Even if you find a relatively minor error variety, it could be worth significantly more than face value, and if you discover one of the major error types in high grade, you could be holding a ticket to financial security that was hiding in your possession all along. The knowledge you've gained from this video gives you a tremendous advantage over the millions of people who handle quarters every day without ever really looking at them. Use that knowledge, apply it, and who knows what you might discover. The 1987 P quarter represents the pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting, the ultimate achievement for anyone who pursues these coins, and the dream discovery that keeps collectors